We turn to our next guest, Neera Tanden, the former senior advisor to President Obama and Hillary Clinton. She's the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress. Neera, let's take another look at that CNN poll, the latest poll of the Democratic primary field, because it's kind of fascinating. Joe Biden at 29%, a jump of 7 points in that poll. Bernie Sanders holding steady at 15, Elizabeth Warren holding steady at 14, Kamala Harris down to 5%, a drop of 12 points. Pete Buttigieg holding steady at 5. Beto O'Rourke holding steady at 3. None of the other candidates gets more than 2% of the vote. So, Neera, what is your reading of what has happened in this round of polling?
You know, I think one way to look at what's happening is that essentially this is the contours of the race. Then we have these debates, which create a flashpoint, but this might be the equilibrium until we really get to Iowa. Polls in Iowa are different than these polls, than the national polls, and Iowa can change the calculus pretty dramatically for the national polls. We saw that in 2007. We definitely saw that in 2007, 2008. We saw that in 2015, 2016. Candidates who can surge in Iowa can really change the trajectory of how they do nationally. So, you know, my take here is that the vice president is doing well because there's been a series of polls over the last month in which it shows that they show that he is the best candidate against Trump. Electability is still a critical issue. And I think for a lot of Democratic voters, while we all engage in all the differences between these candidates, they are fundamentally thinking that the differences between the Democratic candidates are pretty small in comparison to the difference with Donald Trump himself, particularly after events in El Paso, in California. You know, the danger of Trump, I think, almost helps Biden. But again, it's very early.
Well, that is the Rachel Bitecofer point, is that the voter is driven so much by fear of Donald Trump, and that could be part of what's supporting the Biden candidacy. It certainly seems to be the operative principle in Joe Biden's campaign advertising. Let's take a look at this new campaign ad from Joe Biden.
We know in our bones this election is different. The stakes are higher, the threat more serious. We have to beat Donald Trump. And all the polls agree Joe Biden is the strongest Democrat to do the job.
And Neera, I want to give credit to the other people in this poll who don't make that 3% cut, because right below Beto O'Rourke, you have Cory Booker at 2, Julian Castro at 2, Tulsi Gabbard at 2, with a margin of error of 3.7%. Cory Booker could be up there in the Buttigieg category at this point. And so there's still a lot of potential movement here at the lower end of this poll.
Absolutely. And again, you know, there are reports of different candidates doing really well in early states. Booker doing well in Iowa, getting really great crowds. Warren doing very well and doing very well in Iowa polls. Beto O'Rourke has, you know, a lot of Democrats have appreciated what he's done over the last couple of weeks, really taking it to Trump. So I don't think we should see these polls as determinative. They are flashpoints at this time. And, you know, I've been parts of campaigns that won and lost that were doing well at this point in the election cycle. I do think we should think about what's energizing voters. And to Rachel Bitecofer's point, I do agree with her fundamentally that Trump is the driver both amongst Republicans and Democrats. And Trump is making Democrats very much focus on electability in a way that they haven't in any election in really my lifetime. The concern is so fundamental because Donald Trump is such a threat to pretty much core Democratic values. And so everyone is really measuring who can take on Trump. And I also think part of what's happening, and I do think this is a part of the 2018 analysis, it is absolutely the case that people were voting for and against Trump. And lots of people came out to vote against Trump. But according to a lot of analysis, Civitas is one group that has done this, essentially there were, 90% of the Democratic surge vote, 90% of the margin vote, I should say, the vote that led to the House victory were voters who had voted for Trump in 2016 and moved to Democrats in 2018. So it's really an and strategy. There are voters, and you see this in the polling just you enunciated, White non-college women who were 2-1 against Hillary are now 43% for Trump, 49% for Democrats. That is a big move amongst those voters. They're not super partisan. They tend to be independent. And so I think that's an argument that Biden is using, that he can appeal to those voters. Sanders also says he can appeal to those voters. I think Democrats are making a very complicated view about who can put together a broad coalition to take on Trump.
Neera Tanden, I know that polls are early. We all know that. But when you see in the polls what you're hoping to see in the polls, it's worth acknowledging. And people do. Within the campaigns, they're very happy to see these kinds of polls. Neera Tanden, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.